All right, thanks everybody for coming. So it's January 30th, 2025. We really appreciate you folks taking the time to join us for this training. We will be this is hosted by Catalis. So our colleague Dave Salzer from Catalis is going to be walking us through the training. He's been working with us to build an online methodology for submitting your information for our utility valuation structure that we're moving to. We also do have on the call several of my colleagues, the district advisors who are located around the state who work with towns on utility valuation work. And then we also do have Brian Fogg and Owen Fogg, who are our contractors who are professional utility valuation folks who helped us establish our new methodology. So really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here. The agenda that I set out was because there are slightly different instructions from Dave for depending on whether you are a transmission and distribution utility provider, or if you are a municipal or co-op transmission or distribution provider. So we folks are welcome to be here for all of that. We also have a few folks who will be hopping in about an hour from the munis and co-ops because there's a few different changes to forms and submission and calculations. And we're really excited and really appreciate Dave taking the time to be here and for building us this really great online methodology. So I think with that, I will hand it over to Dave. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jill. So this is the first training, so we'll see how it goes. No, it should be fine. I'm not worried. This is going to be going over a system that gets used in a lot of different states for different types of e-filing. And so in Vermont, it will be used for utility information, electronic filing. And the forms that we're going to be going over today, and I'll do a PowerPoint and then we'll do a live demo. The forms really are designed to work with the methodology that the state has for how they value utility filers. So the data that's being requested and how it's captured is to coincide with the model that I see the Brian and Owen Fogg are on. They're the consultants that work with the Department of Taxes to create that valuation model. So these forms will feed into that model and produce the valuations. And what we'll talk about today is how you enter your information into the system, how you interact with it, what you need to know. So feel free to stop me if you have questions as we're going. I'll try to keep my eye on the chat as well. So like I said, it's really about, in this application, capturing the information that you need to provide to the department to be compliant with their valuation process. This system will be deployed for the 2025 tax year. So you'll be able to get into the system early next week. You'll be able to request your credentials and get access. It's a web-based application, so you can get to it on any computer using any web browser. And what we'll try to do is cover what you need to know. So as Jill mentioned, there are two types of filers that are set up in the system right now. And the only thing that differentiates filers are the types of forms that they have access to. So right now we have distribution and transmission filers, and we have municipal/cooperative filers. As filers, you need to go through and fill out the required forms, or what we call form tasks. You can either enter the information. When I say hand enter, it really means just type it into the application. Or if you have an upload file that matches the system requirements, you can upload your data into the system. As a filer, your goal is to go through each of the forms within the filing and complete them. Once you've done that, you can complete the certification task. The certification task is essentially the filer's way of indicating to the state that they are ready and they've completed all the information. It's kind of like a TurboTax methodology where you complete each of the subsequent steps and then you're able to submit. So as a filer, when you log in, you'll land on the home screen. We'll go over the home screen in a second, but essentially your filings are listed at the bottom of that page, and you can see here in the image. For Vermont utility filers, you'll only have one filing. The system does allow for multiple filings a year. A filing is essentially a group of form tasks. You'll have your company information displayed here. So if you have access to more than one company, if you're a consultant or someone who works with multiple companies, you can have them all under one account, and you're able to change your selection through the filer selection list. And on this page, you'll also see the alerts. Alerts are internal notifications that the system generates when you have a filing return, complete a filing. There's different configurations for alerts, but those are just essentially internal messages for the system. So this is your home page. You can see those different areas I was talking about. You have your year and filer controls. By default, you'll all be in 2025. And as you go forward in time, you'll be able to go back and look at prior year's information. It's all logged in the system. You'll see your company information, which will include your ID number, the type of filer you are, and your company's name. The alerts area. And then the most important area down below are the filings. It shows the type of filing, the status, how many tasks you've completed, if you've requested an extension, when it's due, etc. So this is the summary. If you click on this, it'll take you into where all the form tasks are located. So like I said, when you log in, you land right here. There's no trick. You don't have to go find things. It just takes you right to the home page where you have all your information. When we go into a filing, this is where you'll spend the majority of your time within the system. You have 4 tabs, and we'll go over all the interfaces, and like I said, we'll do a live demo after this. You have the task tab, which contains all the things you need to do. Alerts, which will show you any alerts related to the filing. It's just the alerts on the page here will show you all the alerts related to you for the year. The alerts tab here will show you only ones that pertain to the filing. You have attachments. So if you have additional things you want to attach to your filing for the year, they may not be required in the form tasks, but perhaps you have spreadsheets or other forms, FERC forms, whatever it may be that you want to provide as attachments, you can. And then you have a notes area where you can add additional notes to attach to the filing. So all of those things get bundled together and sent off as a group. So you'll fill out all your tasks, you can add any attachments or notes, and those will always live with the filing going forward. So 2 years from now, you can go back to 2025 and see what attachments and notes you made with the filing that year. There's a request extension button as well. If you hit that, it'll take you to the extension request area. Pretty generic functionality. Here you can see a close-up of that screen. You see the 4 tabs which you need to, or which you have access to, excuse me. Honestly, as a user, you don't have to ever go near the alerts, attachments, or notes if you don't need to. For all these initial filing setups, all of your work is contained under the task tab. But like I said, if you have additional documents or notes that you want to provide to the state, you have the ability to do that. You see all the different form tasks here listed in the table. And these are the items that need to be completed to get to your submission certification. So you see by default, they all say in progress. So our goal is going to be to work through each of these forms, mark them as ready for submission, and then we'll go through the submission certification, which is really just a e-signature. Any questions so far? Okay. So for transmission distribution filers, the forms or the form tasks that you're presented with are the report of continuing property, report of transformers and regulators, the report of real property, construction work in progress, and contacts. So what we'll do is go through each of those form tasks, talk about them, and then we'll go through the certification task, and then I'll jump into the software and we can go through things live. So the continuing property depreciation form captures your assets by FERC code and year installed, and then applies a Handy-Whitman factor and depreciates the assets based on that year installed. This is only for the distribution transmission filers, and there is an upload available for the form. So when you go into the form, it looks like this. This has a few records in it, but by default, your table will be empty, and you'll see that when we do the demo. You have all of the pages will function the same way. You have your instructions or help at the top of the screen. You have your button array that exists above the table. You have the add button, which will allow you to add new records, return, which will take you back to your filing homepage, complete, which will mark the form as complete, and then you have delete all if you're trying to purge your entire form. The only reason the delete all button exists is because there's an upload file button. So if you have a bad upload or you have information you want to clean out, you're able to do it and then re-upload. You have the reports and then reset search. So all the information or button controls are here at the top of the page. And then down below it, you have the records themselves. If we were adding a new record, we would go to the add record page, which would allow us to pick the municipality, the FERC code, the year installed, and the accumulated cost for that asset. The system will then calculate the replacement cost new, the depreciation, and the RCNLD based on those factors. So this is showing how the form would actually calculate. If I had picked Bakersfield, I'd picked my FERC code as 355 poles and fixtures, and I said the year installed was 2019, and my accumulated cost was $35,000. Based on the FERC code and the year installed, the system will then calculate the replacement cost new based on the Handy-Whitman factor. That factor is displayed next to the replacement cost new label. So it's basically showing here that the $35,000 was multiplied by 1.15 to generate a replacement cost new of $42,000. Based on the applicable depreciation table, the FERC code and the year installed calculates a depreciation of almost $2,900, which results in our property value. So based on those inputs, the system will calculate for you the replacement cost new less depreciation. Any questions so far?
I don't see any in the chat yet.
Okay. And like I said, we'll go in and demo this form in a few minutes, but that is the first form in the form list. For transmission and distribution filers is a continuing property form. So you're able to add assets to this form continually and fill out your ledger. And we'll just continue to add records here. The actions button will allow you to edit or delete those after you've added them. You may say, I don't want to add the records like that at all. If you prepare an upload file, you can hit upload and it will load your data into the system. Obviously, you need to match the reference values for the FERC codes and the jurisdictions, but provided that information matches, the system will calculate those, the RCN and the RCNLD for you. All right, next form. This one's pretty straightforward, transformers and regulators. It captures transformers and regulators using a unit cost. So once again, when you go into the form, it's going to look pretty similar to the last form. You have different information in the table, same button controls at the top of the screen, help information. So you're going to find the layouts are consistent. So once you get familiar with that, you'll be able to navigate all of the forms pretty quickly. So when you're adding transformers and regulators, the big difference is you are selecting a municipality and an asset type. But based on the asset type you select, the system will automatically populate the average cost. So you as the user will be asked to provide the number of units. I'll jump ahead to what that looks like filled out. So in this instance, I filled out Alberg using a 76 kVA regulator. The system has a default value for $7,900 approximately for that type of regulator. I, as the user, am entering the number of regulators that I have that are 76 kVA. The system is multiplying my units times my average cost to come up with my property value. This type of form is pretty consistent throughout the application. We just call it a unit calculating form, and that will just allow you to enter the number of units, in this case, kVA, or number of substations, or transformers and regulators. That's used for a few different things. Any questions on this one? All right, next three are pretty straightforward. You have the real property form. The information that's captured here is not used in the valuation process. Everybody files this form, and once again, there's an upload available for it. Looks like this, once again, pretty straightforward looking form. I think I have the wrong image here. It says transformers and regulators, my apologies. But when you go into the form itself, this is what you'll see. You have to pick your municipality, enter your span. The rest of the information is optional. Obviously, you're encouraged to provide it, including the total assessed value, the breakdown of improved and land, the size, use of the real property, and any description you want to provide. You can see in the help that it notes again that this form is not used in the calculation of your property value, but it's important information for PVR to capture. Here's what that would look like filled out. You can see I've just entered sample information here. The FERC code is optional here. I want to note that for real property, you're not required to enter a FERC code, but if there is one that's applicable, you can enter it. Any questions so far? All right, construction work in progress. Just like the real property form, it is not used in your valuation. It follows the same basic process that the real property form follows. So you'll see here on the construction work in process, what we call index or home screen. We see the same button array we're used to seeing. And then down below it, we have our municipality, a description of what the construction work in process is, and the value. Pretty straightforward data entry screen. Looks just like the other ones. I think you'll probably start to see that the application follows the same pattern everywhere. You pick a municipality, you can optionally pick a FERC code, enter the amount that was expended, hit save. It's a very straightforward process. Here you can see one that's filled out. I didn't choose a FERC code because it's not required. Once again, the help indicates that this form is not used in the calculation of your property value.
And Dave, Brian just added a clarification on that real property page that it's not part of VTPIE, but that will be the responsibility of the municipality to collect that from the vendors. But it's not part of the VTPIE. Yeah, thanks.
Final form, contacts. Not very complicated, really just capturing some contact information so the department knows where to find you if they have questions about the filing. Obviously, you have a user account, so we know who is in the system, but this is where you want to enter any applicable contacts. The system by default requires you enter at least one contact, but if you have more that you want to provide, certainly can do that. Once again, straightforward, same information you're used to seeing. There is no upload available for contacts. So you would just go in, fill out the contact information. You can see I filled it out here and then save it. So like I said, you'll need a minimum of one contact. And when we go in to do the demonstration in a minute, you'll see us go through that form. And if you want to provide additional contacts, you're always welcome to. But if we don't provide at least one, the system will not allow you to go forward. So once you've completed all the form tasks, you have to complete the certification. And anytime prior to certifying, you can uncomplete a task. You can go and make edits to it, recomplete it. Once you've certified to the state, you'll be locked out of making any further edits to your data. So it's really important that you don't certify until you're ready. The state can always send it back to you if it needs to be. You call and you say, oh my God, I prematurely sent it. I need to get it back. But obviously, it's something that you want to make sure you're ready before sending off. The certification screen is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of complicated checks going on. There is an area that does validation. In this case, there's a single validation happening that you've completed all of the forms. So this is the system way of restricting you from submitting prior to having completed all the form tasks. If that says fail, you won't be able to go forward, so you have to return. There's no complete button here. You have to go back, fill out the appropriate forms, and then the complete button will appear once you've passed that criteria. There's a checkbox that you can check off and acknowledge. And then to do the e-signature, you have to type your name as it appears in your user profile. So you can see it's showing me my name in parentheses. If I don't retype my name to match that, I won't be able to submit. So it's just doing basic validation on the e-signature. Like I said, once this is set to pass and I've completed the forms, a complete button does appear on this page. So pretty straightforward. E-signature, once you've done this, your information ships off to the state. They're able to do their review of it. You'll be able to look at all the information you sent, but you will not be able to change anything. Okay, so that was a 15-minute run through of the forms prior to the demonstration. Any questions? All right, we're going to flip over then. We'll pull up the application itself. All right, so I just logged in. I'm in as a filer. So you can see it defaults me to the homepage that we looked at before. Like I said before, you'll be able to go back to prior years. Obviously, I won't have anything in 2024 if I go back. If I have access to multiple filers, which most of you probably will not, I would be able to do it through here. But if, like I said, for some reason you work for multiple companies, or you're a consultant who has multiple utility filer clients, you can access them all in one interface. So we talked about our filer information, alerts. Down below, we see our actual filing. If I click on that, it will take me into the filing itself. And this is the area we talked about before with the alerts, attachments, notes. We can see all of our tasks are in progress by default. One of the things that's important to note, a lot of people get here and they always hit the back button to go back. Anytime you're in the application, there's a breadcrumb trail, that's following you if you're in the right type of interface that will show you how to get back if you want to. So you can always just click there. So if I'm all the way down in a form, I can go back a level, I can go all the way back up. So just something to note, people tend to miss that that's a clickable area. So like I talked about, your filings are always shown your home screen down below. The due date will be 3/31 for these filings. This is just in a test site. If you do have an extension date, it will show up there. And your submission, the submitter and the date they submitted when you complete the filing will be shown here as well. So just like we looked at in the PowerPoint, we see our, we have 5 different tasks and our submission certification. So there's no set order in which I have to go through these. The only thing that goes last is the certification, but otherwise I can do my contacts. I can go leave, come back later in the day, fill out another form. You don't have to fill this out at once. You can come and go as you please until you submit. But we'll start just to keep it consistent with the first form, the continuing property. So like we saw in the PowerPoint, this is the default layout. You have the table down below, the button controls, help text. If you have suggestions for better help text as you're going through the app, or think, boy, it would be helpful if they said this, please send us an email. We can change this very quickly. So in this case, I have nothing in my table. I want to add data. I'll select the blue add button. When I do that, it's going to take me to the add screen that we saw before. I can pick a municipality, pick a FERC code, year installed, accumulated cost. If I hit the save button, it's going to save my information and return me back to the index. Excuse me. If I hit the save and return button, it's going to save my information and return me back to the screen I was on. If I hit the save button, it will recalculate everything and hold my position. So now you can see I hit save. The system calculated our replacement cost new using that factor, calculated the depreciation based on the FERC code and the year installed, and then gave us a replacement cost new less depreciation. So now that record has been entered into the table. You can see the summary information here If I wanted to get back into that record and edit it, I could just select the actions button and select edit. So I could say, actually, this was $3,600. And now you can see it's updated that information accordingly. Any questions so far?
David, Brian, I just want to clarify, you're going to cover it probably, but when they do an upload of the CPRs, they're not going to see that breakdown upon doing the upload, right?
When you do the fair question, Brian. When you do an upload, what the system is going to do, you obviously would go to the upload page, pick the file and upload it. It's going to populate this entire interface for you. So if you load a file, it's going to fill this table out with all the records you uploaded, and then you can still access them and edit them if you need to. So, I mean, this happens all the time in other states where people upload a file and then say, oh, I forgot a record, and they go in and manually add a record or edit it. So the upload process will fill out the interface for you, and it skips having to go through record by record and add them this way. So we'll talk about uploads a little more after we do the demo of the live demo.
Okay, but that's in real time that happens, right, David?
Yeah, correct. The upload, I mean, it runs on a 5-minute loop. So
yeah.
Within 5 minutes of you uploading the file, it will populate the interface for you.
Right, thank you.
So you can remove assets too this way. You might say, well, no, I didn't. I was just playing around. I don't really have this asset. You can delete it and we'll pull it off your ledger. You can go through and continue to add as many assets as you want. As Brian indicated, you can also upload. When you upload, it bypasses the requirement to have to manually select all the information. And it really just comes down to, your company and your workflow, because you do have to do some things to make the upload file work correctly. It's not just that you can throw anything at it. It does need to be formatted in a certain way. And I'll go over that, and we have documentation we're going to provide to all of you that show you the formatting, gives you examples. So you'll be able to produce an upload file. And the upload files are CSVs. So you can easily prepare it in Excel, and it's not like you need to have an XML file or some fancier interchange format. So at any point in this process, when I'm done, I can hit the complete button. And it's going to say, you sure you want to mark the forms complete? If I say yes, and I go back to my filing, you'll see that it now says pending certification. So it's basically indicating to the system that you're done with the continuing property form, and that once all the other forms are marked pending certification, the certification can be completed. So what it's saying is it's done pending the certification step. That's why the language is pending certification. If I want to go back in and reopen this form, I can hit reset complete, and it will reopen the form for me. I will not be able to do that once I've completed the certification. Only prior to certification, because I haven't sent it to the state yet. Any questions on the continuing property form? Okay. Next one, transformers and regulators. It's a pretty simple one. You can see the initial layout is the same. You have different columns in all these tables. I know they look similar. They always have a title that's telling you what form you're on. But the CP or continuing property table has different columns than you'll see in a transformer and regulator, for example. Same process here. I can upload or I can individually add records. If I individually add a record, I'll be prompted to pick the municipality once again, the asset type, and you can see there's a long list of different regulators and transformers. Based on the asset type you pick, the average cost gets populated. So you can see that's changing based on what I'm selecting. My responsibility is to enter the number of units or the number of transformers that I have, in this case in Arlington. So I might have 15. I can hit save to stay on the page. It'll show me my property value has been calculated as $645, which is the unit times the average cost. If I hit save and return, once again, you can see the information in the table. Pretty straightforward process.
David, this is Sharon from Belco. I have a question. why are we asked to do the transformers and regulators separate from our CPR upload? Why are they separate?
Two different calculation methods. So this is calculating it based on unit costs. The other is calculating based on the factored depreciated cost.
So
Can
in our world, and I'm sure that it happens other places, some of our transformers are millions of dollars and some are just thousands of dollars.
Right.
Are these power
yeah.
transformers only, or are there other VTs or other different type of transformers?
Can I chime in, David?
Yeah.
Well, that's your question to answer, Brian. I'm just a software guy.
Yeah. So the Green Mountain Power for its distribution transformers and regulators uses an average mass accounting, Sharon, and so they don't have the specific, at least currently, the specific original costs and construction dates. So we modified the process for those distribution properties. If you've got transformers that fall under the 355 accounts, and the same for Green Mountain Power, they would all flow through your continuing property records or your 350 accounts, okay?
So Velco doesn't have, I mean, we have our original costs, our in-service dates, each mapped out. So we wouldn't have to report on transformers and regulators. Is
Right.
that what you're saying?
Right. My understanding is you don't own 360 transformers and regulators anyway, right?
Right.
So maybe, David, we need that instruction to reference distribution transformers and regulators based on that question.
Yeah, we certainly can. If you want to clarify,
Yeah,
send me an email and
yeah.
we can change the help text to make it very clear what should be done there.
Yeah,
what transformers and regulators it applies to.
Yeah.
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. So just like the other form, you can mark it complete. Prior to submission, you can reset it and go back in if you need to. The next two forms are, cousins of each other. They work in a very similar way. If I select real property, I can add a real property record. You can see in the help text, it's very clear that this isn't used in the valuation of the property, but this is information that is captured. Big municipality, I can enter a span. I can put in valuation breakdown. I can put in my land area. Once again, these are all optional. If I hit save, it'll show me a property value of $0. Obviously, it's not being used for anything. Save and return will take me back. I didn't enter a FERC account or description, so I don't have anything to show on the table here. But once again, this is a pretty straightforward form, easy to use. Construction work in progress. Well, let me mark this complete before I go too far here. Construction work in progress is the same basic thing. It's its cousin. Select my municipality. I can pick a FERC code if I want. I can pick an expended amount. The test site I'm on, span, won't be required for you. It's listed as optional going forward. It's just here. It's marked as on my test site. Put in my amount expended. Put in a span. Save return. Once again, this isn't being used in your property value. It's just information that's captured. I can mark it as complete. So you can see now all of our actual form tasks are marked as pending certification. We do have one last form task that doesn't have anything about our actual inventory or assets, and that's the contacts form. Like I said,
I just want to, you're going ahead, and I have a question on the land portion. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah, please.
We're having to, now, before we would, on our each town, show that, yes, we own land, but we put no value, no nothing. We would be just reporting, yes, we have 2.5 acres here and 13 here in that town. Now we're having to list everything out, and the span or the the span number that you were using, is that the number that I get on our invoice that we get from the tax or from the state, or not from the state, from the towns? Is that the span number, or what is the span number about? The 1364690,896. Is that on our tax
So-
bill?
Do you want me to answer this?
Yeah, Terry, I think you're probably better suited to answer this
The
question.
span number
Sorry.
is coming, the span number is coming from the town. He just put in any random number there.
Right.
And the land value, no, you don't have to fill that in. That's going to be calculated at the town level. But if you know it, you can put it in.
But I think Sharon's root question was, are you asking them to provide it by parcel or in aggregate for the town?
By parcel, by span number. We
Thank
want to
you.
be able to
Yep.
match every single span or everything that you own to a record at the town level.
Okay, so when we get the tax bill, I'm always verifying that, yes, they've got the same as we do, but sometimes it's a little, a little off. We'll just report what we have on our CPR. Is that what we're doing? And then verifying it with the span number.
It seems like what she's saying, Sharon, and the purpose of it was that if you wanted to put the prior assessed value in there, that you could do that. But the page is set up so you could skip those. And so if you want to put, I don't think the values entered in that row that says assessed values, improved values, or land assessed values really factor into the assessment. I think it's just looking for information from what you have on your end. Okay.
Perfect. Yep, understood. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I should have entered a value here. You see, I put a value in, but the property value is still 0. It's purely for informational purposes.
Yeah, okay. No problem. So what you're asking is for the town, the FERC code, because we have utility and non-utility, and also the span number is really all you're asking, and the acres. Acres? Is that what you're asking? What's mandatory?
The only thing
so I
that's
make sure.
mandatory, I believe, is municipality and span. That's all that's required on this.
Okay.
If I could editorialize real quickly here, though, that if you could put a description in there, lay down yard, 5 acres, be super helpful going forward for making sure that the property record cards are filled out appropriately. So that information would be used on that end in order to improve the accuracy on the property record cards.
Okay. No, I would rather, this is why I'm asking, I want to fill these things out so then they don't need to keep, only the ones that need updating are updated each year. Is that accurate? We could slide it over. We'll have these for history.
Yeah, well, it'll roll all your information forward.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
next year you'll have the same information you ended this year with,
Yep.
and you can
And
make
then
any edits, updates, deletions as necessary.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for the clarifying question. Any other questions on real property or construction work in progress? Okay. I'll fill out my contacts form here. Pretty simple. It's going to ask you for a position. It will not be A, B, or C. We just clarified this morning our official position list. Your organization. I just happen to have a pre-fill from testing so much. I can hit save once again, hold my position, or save and return will bring me back. As I indicated during the PowerPoint, you have to have at least one contact to complete the form. If you attempt to complete it without the contact entered, it will stop you. So I hit complete here. Now we can see that all of our tasks, like uncompleted real property. So that's good, because now we're going to try to do our submission certification. But you're going to see that the system's not going to let me because I haven't completed the real property form. Gives me a link to that form, so if I just want to jump over and hit complete, I can. So I'll go back to my submission certification. Now it's saying I'm passed, everything's ready. I can check the box and type my name as it appears. If I type it incorrectly, it will let me go forward. If you have additional comments you want to make outside of your notes that you're allowed to put in your filing, you can enter them here in the filer comments. When I hit complete, it's going to warn me that I'm about to send my stuff to the state. Once I do that, you can see that the status has been set to completed now. If I attempt to go into any of these forms, it's going to show me the information, but I can't edit anything. We go back up to our filing level. We can see the date that it was submitted, time, who submitted it, that our filer tasks have been completed, that our status is submitted. So once we've done this, unless we hear otherwise, we walk away and wait for a tax bill at this time. So there are some other things I want to touch on regarding the software, but I want to stop and make sure I take any questions now regarding that submission or anything else we've discussed so far.
Yeah, David, can we go back to one of those drop-down boxes where the municipalities are listed for a second? Doesn't matter which one, I guess.
I'll flip to a different filer here.
Okay, so you hit the drop-down box. So my point about the question really is that there is a list of, I think, all the municipalities in the state in that drop-down box, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so each filer is going to have.
Do you see it when it's open right now? Do you guys see this box up?
No,
no. It's expanded. I guess the Teams meeting doesn't show it, but it is expanded. I'll take a screenshot and put it in the chat for everybody if I can.
Okay, my point is that all the towns are going to be listed in that drop-down box, and that the filer is responsible to select the towns where they own assets, right? And it came up, in the last few weeks, that there are the villages that have separate tax rates that will need to have their own filings for, and some utilities have some of those villages, and that if there's questions about whether or not you have assets in a village versus the town at large, then we'll have to resolve that in the filing process, if that makes sense.
Any questions on what Brian just said?
Okay, good. I just want to be sure we understood that. So, okay.
All right, let me pop the PowerPoint back up. Any other questions, by the way? Just make sure we get opportunity for everybody. All right, so going back to the PowerPoint, uploading files. You're all going to be getting sent information regarding the formats, like I said, the schemas, samples of the upload files. They're all CSV format, which you can build in Excel. I'll pull those up in a minute, but I can only share one item at a time. But the upload files should be pretty straightforward. Some of you may choose to enter your data directly into the system. It really just depends how much information you have and how extensive your filings are. As I indicated before, you don't have to do one or the other. You can upload your data and then edit it still in the application, or add records or delete records. The thing that you're probably most interested in is how do you get access to this application? You'll be getting a form that you can fill out, and it is a fillable PDF. You can fill it out by hand as well as you want. You'll have to email to our help desk, which has the address listed here, taxcanvasssupport@catalysgov.com. Essentially, you'll fill out the form, provide some basic information. On the first page of the form, it asks for your primary contact. So that is whoever the primary user of the system is going to be for your company. On the second page, you can add an unlimited number of additional users. So there's no restriction on the number of users that you can have access to the system. For each of those users, you will be asked to assign a user level, and the form explains this. There are only two user levels. Level 1 is someone who can access the system and enter data. Level 2 allows you to access the system, enter data, and submit it to the state. So on the form, you'll be asked to fill out any additional users their email addresses, which ultimately will be your usernames, and what position or level user you want them to be, either level 1 or 2. From there, you'll get credentials issued to you from us. They'll come electronically through our older support address, support@axiomnh.com. That'll get phased out. But you'll get an email that will have instructions on how to create your account, fill out your password, challenge questions, all of those things. So we'll be sending this out. It'll probably come through the state sometime this week, probably tomorrow or Monday, and then you'll be able to start requesting credentials and get access to the system. Any questions on any of that?
Is it one registration per company?
One form per company. We prefer you use the one form per company, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll see on page 2 here, let me pull up the form. You provide your company information, and then, like I said, you'll enter a primary contact. And then on page 2, you can enter as many additional users as you want. And like I said, you can enter the level, and if they're a third party, or if you have a preparer or a consultant you work with, you can just indicate that here as well. So we prefer you file one of these per company, and then enter all the applicable users. Any other questions so far? All right, I want to pull up one more thing here, and that is the schema document. This will come with, like I said, an Excel reference sheet and then CSV sample uploads. But for transmission and distribution filers, this will be the document that explains the different referential data and then goes through the different upload schemas and what the form should look like, or the file should look like to upload. So this will be provided to you as well. I would assume, I haven't coordinated with Jill, but I think we'll probably send this out with the sign-up form so that people have all the information at once. And of course, you can reach out with questions on this as well. So all that information will be sent out to you, and you'll have the full packet of details on what you need to upload information into the system.
All right, and it's still recording. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone, and thanks everyone who was on earlier and stayed on. And for those of you just joining us, we are hosting this training to train utility providers on how to use our new online inventory entry form in our new software system, VTPIE. The training is being put on by Dave Salzer from Catalis, our contractor for this work. And then we also do have on the call our district advisors who work with municipalities and the utility vendors to oversee the property valuation portion of this for the grand list. And then we also have Brian and Owen Fogg, who are our utility valuation contractors, who helped us establish this new methodology and have been working closely with Catalis to build this form. So just thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate the time. Thanks to everyone who's been hanging on. And at this point, I will hand this back over to Dave. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jill. For those of you who are hanging on, I apologize. You'll have to listen to me again and maybe some repeat information, but for those of you who are just joining us, welcome. We're going to be talking about the e-file process for the municipal and cooperative filers. So essentially what we're going to be covering today is the details you need to know about the e-file system that captures the data necessary to perform the valuations per state statute. So it is an electronic filing system. You can access it from any browser or any web browser that has access to the internet. You can use it on a phone, iPad, doesn't matter. And we're going to cover all the things you need to know today. We're going to do a PowerPoint that covers the basics. Then I'll do a live demonstration, and then we'll talk about some of the logistics at the end. How do you load files? How do you get your usernames issued, etc. As we're going through this, feel free to stop me and ask questions. You can put questions in the chat or just, yell out. I'll try to stop fairly often and solicit questions. So there are two types of filers, distribution and transmission. We just went through that training, and then municipal and cooperative. The only difference between the filer types are the form tasks that you're presented with. Both groups fill out many of the same forms, but there are some differences based on the filer types. When it comes to providing information, you have two options. You can either what we call, and it should be in air quotes, hand enter, which means typing information directly into the system, or you can upload it through a CSV that matches the required schema. The term filing in the system refers to a group of tasks that must be completed together. So in the case of the muni and co-op filers, you have a number of tasks that you need to complete. You can complete them in any order you like. Once you complete all of the forms, you're able to complete the certification task, which will submit your data to the state for review. The type of form tasks that appear are based on the type of filer that you are. The grouping of those form tasks together is what we call a filing. So just to kind of reinforce that terminology. When you log into the application, you are taken to the home page by default. It has all of the key information that you're looking to access, your company information, the alerts, which are just internal notifications generated by the system, and then down below are your filings. In the case of the Vermont utility providers, you only have one filing, and you can access that by selecting the record. I'll go to the next screen just so we can see it in detail. At the top of the page, you have the year and the filer controls. So going forward, you'll be able to go to prior years. So in 2027, say, you'll be able to toggle back to 2025 and see what you filed at that time. The system will provide you with that information on an ongoing basis. If for some reason you work with multiple filers, you may be a consultant, you may just work with two different municipalities, you can have them available under one user account, and you're able to change that filer information here through the pick list that's shown next to the year and filer controls. Filer information is displayed in the filer information area. It gives you the company name, ID, what type of filer you are. And then at the bottom of the screen, you see the filings area. The filings table will show you as many filings as you have, but in the case of the Vermont utility providers, as I indicated, you have one filing. It will show you the status of that filing, how many tasks have been completed, extension. The due date, of course, will appear as 3/31/2025 for your filings. It's just a test site. And then the rightmost column that says submission, once you submit your data to the state, it will indicate who submitted it and the date and time that that was done. When you go into your filing, which will be the primary area that you're working in the application, you have 4 different tabs. The tasks, which contain all the form tasks and the certification tasks that you need to complete. Alerts, which will show you any alerts related to your filing. Attachments, which is an area where you can provide any additional attachments that you want with your filing. They're not required attachments, but you may have spreadsheets, FERC reports, whatever it may be that you want to provide as well. Then you have a notes area where you can provide any text notes that you'd like to indicate. All of that information is submitted together. So your tasks, your attachments, and your notes, that represents your filing. So anything you want to be included in that submission to the state, you want to make sure it is in there. There is a blue request extension button. That button will allow you to request an extension and go through that process. It's very generic. You enter the date and reason. Here's a close-up of the screen. You can see the various tabs running across the top of the screen. By default here, we're showing the tasks tab. You see the respective tasks listed in the table below, the bottommost being the certification task. By default, you can see the status of all the tasks is set to in progress. That means that it's open and available for you to enter information. As you're going through each task, you'll mark it complete. The status will change depending certification. Once you've completed the certification task, everything will be marked as complete. So much like, say, TurboTax, you can work through these tasks at any order or pace you'd like. You don't have to fill out all the information at once. You can enter information, come back later. You can do your real property form first. The only requirement is that all of your form tasks are completed prior to the certification. The certification step is going to check and make sure all the other forms are done first. Any questions so far? Okay, so for municipal cooperative filers, the form tasks that you're provided are the report of transmission lines, the report of substations, customer and revenue inventory. That says plan, but that's a spelling mistake. My apologies. It should say plant, P-L-A-N-T, value. Report of real property, construction work in progress, and then contacts. Once you've completed all those forms, you can complete the certification test. So we'll start with the first form, which is the report of transmission lines. It captures transmission line information by mile, and it uses a unit calculation method. Municipal cooperative filers are the primary group that's filing the information, and there is an upload available. So when you go to the form, you will see this. This is what we call the index or home screen for this respective form. I will be doing a live demo after we go through these slides, so you'll be able to get in and see this in action. When you first go to the screen, it will not contain any records. I'm just showing it with a record to provide context. All of the forms you interact with will look the same way. You'll have an information icon and help text at the top. You'll have the name of the form itself, and then below that, all of the controls or buttons that are available. The add button allows you to add new items to the table. The return button brings you back to where you were, your filing. The complete button allows you to mark the form as complete. The delete all will remove all records from the table. The upload file button will allow you to go to the upload file prompt. Reports will show you any applicable reports on that page. And then reset search is just a reset if you have filtered the table. Below that, you have a table that has records in it. The columns will vary depending on what form you're in. And if you want to do something with a record in the table, you select the actions button to the left. So this same structure exists on almost all of the forms you fill out. The munis and co-ops do have a different set of forms for the plant value and customer and revenue inventory, which just lists all the jurisdictions. But in this case, you're going to see this layout over and over in the app. Everything is meant to be consistent. So as a user, once you kind of get the hang of how a form works, all the other forms just follow suit. So if I want to add a record to my report of transmission lines, I'd hit the blue add button and it would take me to the add screen. In this case, it's going to show me the municipality, which I need to select, the asset type, which is going to list different KVA transmission lines, and then the units, I'd indicate the number of miles of that respective line I have, which will calculate my average cost. This is what that form would look like filled out. So you can see in Alberg, I selected a 46 kV transmission line that has an average cost that the system automatically populated for me of $225,000 per mile, roughly. I put in that I have 23 miles. And so it calculated a property value based on the units times the average cost. So you'll see this unit calculation used in a number of the forms that you fill out. It's pretty straightforward. The average costs are system generated. Any questions so far? Report of substations. The purpose is clearly not to capture transmission line information, it's to capture substation information. So another slide mistake, my apologies. It does follow the same exact method though. You'll see if we go to the index or home page for the substation report, we can see it tells us the report of substations, but it follows a unit cost methodology. So I could select the add button, and once again, it's going to give me that same interface where I can pick a municipality, asset type. In this case, under the units, I'm entering the number of substations that I have. The system knows that the substation average cost is $263. So it's going to automatically multiply those two things together to provide your property value. Any questions so far? Okay, customer and revenue inventory. It uses a slightly different layout. You have just one page you'll go to. It's the home page. It looks like this. And essentially you can fill out the information per municipality if you're in multiple. If you are in one municipality, you just need to fill out one line on the form. It captures customer information broken down by res, commercial, industrial, and streetlight. And then it breaks down your revenue as well. So your residential, commercial, and streetlight total revenue. That information is entered in. You can tab directly through the form as well. This form also has an upload available for it. This was a quick one. Any questions? Okay. The next one is the report of real property. It's important to note that this information doesn't get used in the valuation process at all. It's purely informational. The department needs to capture information by span for their inventories. It's filled out by everybody, and there is an upload available for this as well. So, shocker, same kind of screen you're used to seeing. Report of real property. We have a table with different fields in it, button controls. If I hit the add button, I'm presented with a form where I can enter the municipality and the span. Those are the two required fields. The assessment, breakdown, the area, the use, and the description are all desired by the department. They prefer that you fill out all the information, but the required fields are the municipality and the span. Fill out the information. Doesn't matter what you enter for assessed value, the property value will always calculate at 0. It's not used at all in the valuation process, and that's listed at the top of the form in the help area. Any questions on the real property form? There you can see one filled out. All right, report of plant value captures the net plant balance by town, is the cousin of the revenue and customer form. It has the same layout where it's listing municipalities on the right or leftmost column, excuse me. You're entering a plant balance and accumulated depreciation, and the system will automatically calculate the net plant based on that. It's another one that has an upload available for it. If your net plant calculation is only at the total network level and not at the town level, you can attach that as an attachment to the filing instead. Any question on that? All right, getting towards the end of the form slides here, we have the construction work in progress form, which is the cousin of real property, works in the same way, not used in the valuation process. You have, once again, a common interface that you're used to seeing. Construction work in progress has the listed fields here. It will show a property value because you're asked to provide the value of the construction work in progress, but it is not used in the valuation process. Here you can see, was there a question?
Yes, and you might answer this, but the construction work in progress, we don't have that on a town by town basis. So is that something we need to do as an attachment, or is that something that we can just go in and put 0 and move on?
Brian, what do you think about construction work in progress in that format?
I think is this Laura by any chance?
No, this is Marissa with Vermont Electric.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I think if you don't have it by, municipality, yeah, you're gonna have to enter 0. David, can you just skip, if you go through the cells, can you save it with nothing in it?
Yes, you can. On any of the forms, you can just, if they're not applicable to you, you can just mark them as complete. So say you don't have transmission lines, that's what would seem odd, but you can always just mark the form as complete. So in the case of someone who did not have their construction work in progress broken down by town, you would mark the form complete, and then as the person who asked the question indicated, you would attach a file, I would believe, that would have that at the network level.
Does that help?
Yes, so you want us to attach the total company level
Yeah.
for this? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And when we go into the demo, I'll show you how you can just mark a form complete as well. This is how the same form would look filled out. Last form, the contacts. You must provide at least one contact to submit this information. The contact is, whoever you think the primary interface should be for the tax department if they need to reach out to you related to this submission. Works just like all the other forms. You cannot upload the contacts. There is no upload available for it. If you hit the blue add button, it's going to take you to a contact form that you can fill out, provide all the required information, indicate the position. The system will require, if we go back here, if I try to hit a complete button on this form without any information entered, it will stop me. That's only the contact form. As we were just talking about, on the other forms, they can be entered as complete without any information provided, but contacts do require at least one record. So once we've gone through all the forms, we can complete our certification task. The certification task is pretty straightforward. It first checks to make sure that you've completed all of the form tasks. So if you haven't completed all the forms, you can't complete the certification. If you've completed all the forms, this little status area will say pass in green. You can check the filer certification checkbox and then do the e-signature. The e-signature requires that you enter your name as it appears in your user profile. It will be displayed to you for reference purposes right above the box. So in this case, it's showing my name. If I want to sign this form, I just have to type my name in as it appears there. If I don't type it in correctly, it won't let me submit. Because we don't have a pass status here, it's not showing me the ability to complete the form. Once I complete the form, I'll be submitted. Everything will be locked. At that point, it'll be sent off to the state for review. I can see everything that I've entered, but I can no longer edit or delete anything or add. I'm going to jump over and start the live demonstration. Any questions while I'm doing that? Okay. So I'm logged in as a cooperative filer. This is when you log in, this is your homepage. This is where you'll be taken. You can click on your annual filing right here to get to your filing. It's always going to be listed at the bottom of this table. We talked about the year controls. Right now, we have nothing in 24. As we go forward in time, you'll be able to go back and look at your prior years that way. If you have access to multiple filers because you're a consultant or you're someone who works for multiple utilities, you would have access to those here. The alerts panel, which will send internal alerts or messages related to activities in the system. And then our filings down below. Something I didn't mention, which I should, if you go to do the e-signature and you say, boy, that's my name spelled wrong, or that's not my name, or I want to fix it, you can always go to settings and go to your user profile, and that's where your name appears. So the name that's shown here is the one that populates that field. Gotta go back to my test. So I'm going to click on my annual filing. It's going to take me into the filing itself. Here I see all the tasks that we just talked about, alerts, attachments, notes. Obviously, my primary focus is here, but if I have to add attachments, or if I even want to just put a note in, and I could say what my total construction work in progress was, I can do that here as well. As we talked about before, you have to complete all of your tasks to do the certification. You don't have to go in any specific order. You don't have to complete it all at once. You can come and go as you please, but you do need to complete all the tasks prior to certifying. Start by selecting the first one, the report of transmission lines. And you can see, just like the PowerPoint slides, it's a table with the button controls, help text. If I want to upload, and we'll talk about uploading after the demo, I can hit the upload button. What uploading will do is populate all my information into this table. I'll still have to complete the form the traditional way, but all of I will bypass having to key information in. If you don't upload information, your option is to hit the add button. You can pick the municipality, pick the asset type. And I think we realized in the last training, when I'm selecting these are pick lists that populate, that has all the municipalities, all the available asset types. Teams isn't showing the list opening. So I select a municipality and an asset type from the list. Based on the asset type I select, the system gives me the average cost. So what I need to do here is enter the total units of transmission line. So I might only have 5.3 miles here. I'll enter that. If I hit save and return, it's going to save my information, take me back to where I was on the home page. If I hit save, it's going to hold my position and recalculate. So now show me that 5.30 miles times $224,960 a mile is about $1.2 million. I can hit save and return if I want. It'll bring me back here, show me the information I entered in the table. If I want to edit this information, I can select edit here in the actions button, and it will allow me to get back to the record. And there's a pick list that displays on the actions that may or may not be displaying to you all. So you have two options, edit or delete. If I select delete, the system's going to confirm, do I want to remove this? In this case, I'll say no. So you have the ability to continue to add records manually like this. You can upload a file. You can do a combination of both. You might say, well, I added one, but I'm just going to upload the rest. Then you can go to the upload and follow the prompts. At any point, I can mark the form complete. When I do that, the system is going to confirm that I want to do it. Now you can see the form is disabled. I can't add things anymore. If I use the breadcrumb trail here and go up a level to my annual filing, I can see that it's marked as pending certification. So that means that I have marked this form as ready to be complete, and once we certify, it'll be marked as complete. At any point prior to completing the certification, I can go back in and reopen this form. So if I want to reopen it, make a change, I can. Essentially, anytime prior to you sending the data to the state, you're able to reopen anything you've marked as pending certification. Think of it a lot like TurboTax. You complete your individual sections, and then you submit the whole thing. So if you want to edit individual pieces prior to the submission, you can. In this case, we'll mark it as complete. I'll go up a level. So here we can see I'm marked as pending certification. So the next report we have are substations. Substations work the same exact way. They're capturing the same information or slightly different information, but calculating in the same manner. So if I hit add, I can pick my municipality. Under my asset type, I have one option, which is substation. Based on that, the system populates the average cost of $263. I put in the number of substations, hit save, system will update my property value. So works just like the transmission line form. It's the same basic form, as you can see. It just is using different average costs. Any questions on that so far?
So on substations, sorry, this is Marissa from Vermont Electric again. On substations, you're not taking into account when they're created. You just want the KVA for the substation in that town.
Yeah, that's correct, Marissa. We're using sort of the basis of it from some average mass accounting numbers. And so, yeah, so those would be the depreciated costs based on that study.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions so far? Okay, so we can mark this one as complete as well. Once again, any point prior to certification, I can go back and update that. I can reopen it and make any changes. Customer and revenue inventory. This is a slightly different format of form. You see that it's listing all the jurisdictions going down. You have your different customer types and your revenue types. You can upload a file into this. You can tab through it as well. The tab order will just continue to go left to right and then down. So if you're entering multiple towns and you're someone like me who is pretty fast on a keyboard, you can go through and just key those in using tab as well. The list of municipalities will include the village districts as well. It's all available municipalities for information to be entered into. This one is pretty straightforward. Like I was saying before, you can complete this form without entering any information. Obviously, you would have customers and revenue, so I wouldn't recommend that. But this is the cousin of the plant value form. So like all of them, they don't have hard requirements on entered information. Obviously, the state's going to ask you to update this if you don't enter things for customers and revenue. But for the purposes of the demonstration, you can see that I can complete a form and then reopen it based on having just zeros in it to the question that was asked previously. So in this case, when we go through and fill out something, 50. Making it complete. Information is saved. Once again, I can reset the form if I want to. Otherwise, marked as pending certification. Next form, real property. Oh, sorry, question, please.
Can I ask a question real quick? This is Tia from Washington Electric. So our security light revenue is all encompassed within our residential revenue. So are we going to be okay on that form to be able to still list the amount of security lights by town, but have the revenue in the residential classification?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So real property, works pretty much the same way. You hit the add button, you pick your municipality, you have optional FERC code, assessed values, land use and area, description. You have to enter a span. I'm just going to type in a random span. Doesn't mean anything. It's recommended you enter your assessed values, use, acreage, description, because it helps with the property record cards, as Brian indicated in the earlier session. I'll just put some information in here. You can see even if I put in land value and I hit save, the property value still shows a 0, and the help text clearly says that this is not used in the calculation of your property value. So this is informational capture in your filing. I can hit save return. You can see the information. You can see the application, uses the same layout for all the forms to keep things consistent. We have the plant value, which is the cousin of customer and revenue inventory, is going to show you all of the same municipalities, breaks down the information by plant net balance and accumulated depreciation. This was the question before. If you do not have it at the municipal level, you can attach a file or an Excel spreadsheet to the attachments that gives your overall network. But if you do have it, enter it. Say, not a lot of depreciation. Maybe I should have a 0 in there. Then I'll mark this form as complete. This is another one that it's important to make sure, if you don't have it by town, that you do provide the attachment. All right, so we're working our way through it. We did our transmission, substations, customer and revenue inventory, real property, plant value. So we have 2 more forms to go, and then our certification. Construction work in progress. This was another one that someone asked about, network versus municipal. And so if you can't provide it at the municipal level, provide an attachment with the network information. Otherwise, if you're you report your construction work in progress by municipality, I would hit the add button, pick my municipality. I don't have to pick a FERC code. I could enter the amount expended. The span field will not be required. I'm just on a test instance where we had it set to required. Provide a description is very useful for this, especially for construction work in progress. I can hit save and return. It does provide a property value, but that doesn't get used in the valuation of your property. Mark this one as complete. Same thing, we can reset it, continue to change it if we want to. This is another form that has an upload available as well. Last form is contacts. Pretty straightforward. You need to add at least 1 contact to complete the form. If we try to complete it before that, it will tell us that we need a contact. This would be whoever the primary person is who you want to interface with the department if they have questions about your filing. Select the add button. The positions will be more realistic than position A, B, and C that we have on the test site. Then you'll want to fill out the other applicable information. I have a pre-fill that I'm using, but you can go through, fill out the required fields, hit save and return. Once you've added 1 contact to the system, you're good to complete the form. Of course, you can provide as many other contacts as you'd like. It really is just up to you and what you want to provide. You are required to do at least 1. Hit complete. Go back now. You can see all of my forms are set to pending certification. I'm going to go in and reset my contacts just to provide an example here. When I go to my certification task, it's now going to tell me I can't go forward, and you can see the complete button's grayed out because it says you haven't completed the contacts form yet. So the system can do as any types of checks we want, but in this case, the only check it's doing is to make sure everything's been completed prior to certification. So in this case, it does give me a link if I want to jump back to the contact form. I can hit complete. Then I can go back in and finish my certification. So to do that, I'll select my certification, says I'm passed. Check the checkbox, and then enter my name as it appears. If I enter it incorrectly, I won't be able to submit. If you say, boy, my name looks strange, I'm not sure why it got entered that way. As I showed in the beginning of this, you can go up to the settings and go to your account profile, and that's where you control how your name's displayed. In this case, I'll hit complete. At that point, I've completed my filing. You can see everything now is marked as complete. If I go into any of these forms, I can see the information that I entered. I can't change anything. Everything's locked and disabled. So at this point, the information is sent off to the state for review. The state will be able to go through, review the forms, and at this point, you kind of wait for future correspondence on your taxable values.
I have another question. Again, this is Marissa. Prior to submitting it from the state, what reports, I see the report tab, but like what reports are available to get a grand list value, to have, you know, like a check in total about what's been uploaded and submitted?
So I'm not showing it right now on the test site, but all of their respective forms that we were looking at, these tables, have Excel and PDF reports. So you can download everything that's in here in a spreadsheet and look at those totals.
Okay.
Regarding the grand list value, there, it'll provide, yeah, by town, how you've uploaded it. Everything broken down. Any form will allow you to download the information back out of it into Excel or PDF. And it'll be broken down the way it was provided.
And will that provide the grand list value? And that might be more of a question for Brian or Jill, but does that provide the grand list value, or do we have to wait for that?
My understanding is that this is going to go, the results of this go to the town. The town adds the various real property that might not be part of the system. In other words, land or whatever, and then the letters of values will go out from there. Would that be correct, Jill and Terry?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
So it'll be a bit of a shift then, because right now we know what our grand list is for our utility property, and when we get the change of appraisal notices, we use that as a comparison back to what we sent, so that we have that double check to make sure that it's not something didn't get missed or changed or an issue. So we won't have that anymore.
Well, maybe we should think about that. That sounds like something useful. I don't know if Christy or Terry have any thoughts, but we might want to look into that. Christy, did you unmute?
My understanding was the same as Brian's, but I assumed that the values would be in here, Brian, at the end of the day, as the town would access them. Are the utility companies not able to see that?
So to answer that, my question would be for David. So David, the reconciliation page that does the math for the numbers of customers and the income, et cetera, is that available for view by the filer?
Once it's marked as completed by the state.
So the state, after the state's review, then the filer can see the final number of whatever's in that part of the system, right?
Sure. Yeah, they see the value of that at that point because it's a completed filing.
So for them, what would they need to do? Would they need to go back in again to see that? And how would they know to do that?
You get notified. I believe the department's working on a formal notification.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Would have that information.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe our plan, and Jill, you and I think we're working on a letter, was to export from the system the values to then send to the utilities at the same time they would go to the town's portal. Does that sound correct?
That was
Yeah, and
my
that might even
understanding,
be
Christy.
automated, right? Because Dave, that's one of the letters that we were.
Yeah, essentially you would generate letters on the completion that you could send to the filers to say, here is the value that, and this is the same value that's being provided to the municipalities. And it shows the breakdown by municipality.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that your understanding, Christy?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we won't have that until the state has done their review, and that's because you need to do initial calculations after we've submitted things to get that value. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, it's not so much it's not additional calculations. It's a review of the submitted data and then a review of the final reconciliation and then a sign off on the state's end of that, which finalizes the process, is my understanding, right, David?
Yes, correct.
So is it possible for us to see it before it goes to the state so that we can do, an internal gut check, if you will, that it makes sense for what we historically have done or what we think it should be done. If we do this and then all of a sudden we've got a town that normally is $60,000 and it's showing at, 6 million, we won't know that until after it's gone to the state. And I'm assuming that that's a process to fix. But, if we were able to look at that beforehand and kind of gauge where we're at, we also use it for estimating our property tax invoices by town as well, so that we know where we're at. So I just don't know if it's possible to see it before we've sent it to the state. Obviously, if there's a difference between when the state's reviewed it and when we have, that's not the end of the world for us, just because we'll understand why there's a difference, but at least it gives us our own reconciliation before we're sending it to the state for yours.
Right. So I'm not sure what access David can give you to the reconciliation, but Terry and Christy, there's a statutory timeline when we have to finish the review process, right? So we have to have the values to the towns by, what are the dates?
We have to collect them from the utilities by March 31, and then we have to send them to the towns by May 1.
Okay,
Correct.
so the review would be completed on or before May 1 then.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think it's a great
I
question.
can talk with Jill. I mean, there's
Yeah.
obviously, some reporting stuff that can be done too to provide more clarity to you before you submit it. I understand the filer's concern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And I wonder
But
too,
it's something we can take
especially
back.
this year, we might spend a bit more time reviewing than maybe once things have chugged along for a couple of years. So this will be our first year doing this. So, but I think that's a good question. Yeah,
Right.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me jump back over to the PowerPoint then, cover a few things. So, uploading files. You can upload to everything except for the contacts. The requirements are that you're using a CSV format, which can be produced in Excel. You have to use the reference values that the state is publishing, and you have to use the format that the scheme is defined. So Terry, I believe, is going to be sending out to everybody the schema, the reference tables, and the sample uploads so that you can see all the reference materials around uploading. There's no requirement to upload, but for many of you, if you have a lot of data, you'll want to upload. If you have 5 transmission lines, honestly, it's probably faster to just type it in. It really depends on how much data you have and how much time you want to spend. You can always prepare the uploads in Excel, which is obviously a format that most people are comfortable in. So all that information has been prepared and will be sent out to you as filers. The next important item is issuing credentials. So you will receive from the state a PDF. It's a fillable PDF. You can fill it out that way. And then you'll submit it to the help desk, which is listed here, taxcamasupport@catalysgov.com. And that form will help us to, number one, register your company. So 1 form per company. Number 2, it captures the primary contact. So whoever you want to have as the primary person to interface with the department. You'll enter your contact information. And then on the second page of the form, you can enter the information for any additional users you want to have added in. And I'll pull up the form because it's probably easier to explain it that way. So the form indicates on the top where you can send it once you have filled it out. Fill out your company information. You can fill out the primary contact. And this is, probably most of you who are on the call today. Then on the second page, and you can add as many page 2s as you want, you put the first, last, and email of any additional users you want. So the important thing to note about additional users are you can set them as having one of 2 user levels. And it does state this in the information up here. Level 1 users can enter data into the system. Level 2 users can enter data and submit to the state. So essentially, anyone who you don't want to have submitting data to the state, don't make them a level 2 user. You can also indicate if it's a third party, so it may be a consultant or an accountant or someone else. So you can have an unlimited number of user accounts within your company. It's up to you to determine who has access. Their usernames will end up being their emails. Once you submit the form, they'll be processed. You'll get an email that will have the instructions on how to create your account. You will follow those instructions, which is basically just clicking a button. It'll allow you to create your password, set your challenge questions, go through the normal process. From there, you'll be free to start entering and uploading data. And our help desk is available to answer questions. And that can be accessed through the email listed here at the top of the form, taxcanvasssupport@catalysgov.com. So with that, I'm happy to take any additional questions.
One question on villages, and I was on the call earlier and you mentioned it, but I missed the details. We have about 4 villages that require a breakdown from what portions within the villages versus the towns. Mm-hmm. How do we handle that?
The villages are just listed under the municipalities tab. They'll be at the bottom. You can find all the villages.
Okay, they are listed. Okay.
They weren't shown there in the test site, but they are there. We added them in yesterday. We got the final official list from the state. So okay. They'll be there. You just pick them like you would pick any other municipality.
And so the portion that we do for the town will be reduced by the amounts that go to the village so that in total it ties to what's there for the town, or do I put the total in the town and then the portion that's in the villages?
You want to keep this is Brian. You want to keep them separate because you've got different tax rates in the village sometimes than the town at large. In the event that you don't have the specific breakdown of revenue in the villages, then I think we're going to have to use an average in that case. You didn't ask that question, but it did just occur to me that you might not have specific revenue within the village. But in that case, we can talk about how to fill it out.
Okay, yeah, because last year, I don't have a way to break down the village. But I can provide that in the town total, but it won't obviously be there for the village.
So this is where, sorry, Brian, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think maybe we should talk about it offline, because in some cases that the village, you've got an exempt village as well, right? Typically.
Sorry, say that again.
I said in some cases the village or one entity is exempt as well, right?
Sounds really weird, but what exempt from what?
Oh, you might not be a municipal. If you're a municipality, sometimes the village.
No, sorry, we're a co-op. Sorry, we're Vermont Electric.
Sorry, I didn't mean to give you hope there.
I'm like, oh, exempt. I like exempt.
Okay, so in those cases where there's a village with a separate tax rate, we are going to have to sort out how to allocate the value to the village versus the value to the town. And if you don't have this specific data, then we're going to have to give you some direction about how to split it out. Okay.
Okay, so I can just reach out to you. Who do I reach out to directly to work through that. Cause like I said, I have like four or five.
If it's okay with Jill, I think probably reach out to Owen and I, and we can help you work through it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
include Terry on there if you can.
Okay.
This is another one of those, this is our first year doing it, so we were trying to figure it out, but this was a good question because we were trying to figure out how to navigate this too.
Okay.
And
Great.
yeah, I know in New Hampshire, we run across that occasionally as well, and we ended up having to do some sort of mathematical averaging or something in order to break it out.
It just made me think about that, you know, something to note for everyone is that you can add as many notes as you want to your filing to as the filer. So I just added this one in here I'm showing on the screen. And you can add attachments, but if there are important things that you want to make sure are included in the filing, you know, make sure to add them in. This stuff all lives together permanently. So if you go forward in time 3 years and you say, oh, I remember we had a village question in 2025, what was the resolution or what did we say? You can go back to the 2025 filing and look at the note that was entered. So this is an important repository for information as well when you think about your correspondence with the state and what you go through every year to file. Any other questions?
I just have a quick question. As we go through this process and we're entering in our information, if we're having difficulty or questions on what we should be entering, who should we be contacting, the state or you, Brian?
There is like tech support if it's something like simple with the system that will be available that you can email Catalis, but otherwise, how about Brian and myself, and I'll include like Terry and Christy. It's a good question.
Yeah, the only thing I would delay is if it's software related, you should reach out to Catalyst and our team in the help desk.
Yeah.
But if you're wondering, you know, like the question that just came up about how do I break out my village district, that would be one that would have to go to the subject matter experts.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, very good question. All right, I'll pass it back to you, Jill.
Okay, really appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you, Dave, very much. And thanks to Brian and Owen for being on too. We did record this. I am working with our comms team. We'll post it on our website and I'll send it out as well. So that if you need to rewatch it, or if you want to share it with anyone in your office, definitely feel free to do so. And Terry is sending out the written materials and the letter and the forms and things like that. So the idea being that we will help you folks set up an account if you fill out that form that sort of authorizes you to use the system and gives authority to the person entering the data in there to do that on behalf of the utility. So that's a pretty straightforward form. And then Dave, I'm not sure if we determined when we would open it up. Did we decide like February? Maybe we'll send another note to you folks in a couple
I think
weeks.
Monday was the target.
Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's right, Monday the 3rd.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so we'll send a note out as well when that is up and running. And definitely don't hesitate to send myself or any of us a note if you have questions and reply to the invite. And we'll do our best to get back to you and just really appreciate everyone helping us navigate through this. We're looking forward to having this stood up and in place and used by you all. And yeah, thank you
Jill?
very much. Yeah.
We have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
In regards to like the roll forward next year, what information will be saved that we don't need to duplicate efforts next year or that we can verify?
Great question. I don't know, Dave. I think everything is, you can choose to
We can
copy
roll
over.
everything. The only thing we probably wouldn't roll would be things like customer and revenue inventory because they're year specific. And then I guess we'll have to discuss construction work in progress. But otherwise, we would typically roll all the information forward into the next year. And that's why there's that delete all button, because you may get into the second year and say, well, I want to upload a clean file, so I just want to purge everything. But for a lot of you, I think that roll forward, especially for things like real property, will save you a lot of time in data entry.
One more quick question. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. That's why we're having this call so we can have these
I
questions.
got the email that Terry sent, but there is an Excel form that she included that I'm not I'm not really clear on what we need to do with.
What type of filer are you?
Cooperative.
Is that the 2025 Form 4452?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, that's all the information in addition to this that we need. Like that isn't put into VTPIE yet.
Okay, I don't.
So
looking at it, it looks like we don't have anything that we need to do on it. It doesn't look like it applies to us.
okay, you have land. I know that's in VTPIE also.
Yeah.
So you would just fill that portion that you have out.
On VTPIE, I don't need to do it in the Excel.
No, I would do it in that form and send that form in. Because that's going to solidify that you don't have anything else.
Okay, I'm sorry, just to clarify. So we fill it out on VTPIE and then we fill it out as well on the Excel and then send the Excel in?
The Excel has more information on there also because it has the generation plant.
We don't.
If you don't have any, that's fine. If you list your land in your book and page, that's good. FERC 390 is your personal property. Machinery and equipment and inventory. That's what this is for.
Okay, so if we've never provided any of that in the past,
then I would fill it out and just put zeros in. Or
okay,
if you don't have them. That way we're confident that you're fine and you filled it out.
okay, all right.
Can I interject real quickly though? On the FERC 390 piece, generally speaking, the reason that it's on that Excel is because oftentimes FERC 390 is representative of buildings. And so the purpose of asking for that is that it's not included in the regulated guys continuing property records, because it's all kinds of different properties. So if you have buildings in the community on various tax parcels, that would be the place to enter it, even if it's redundant to the Vermont PIE, I would say.
Okay.
So to answer, Enosburg has 2 hydro units. Therefore, we fill this form out. Yes.
So if we have a district office in Richford, we would put that information there, even though we get a separate tax bill from the town for it?
Yes, this is to help us to make sure we're getting everything that you actually have and not missing anything or double dipping anything.
Okay, so I would put the district, I would put the span number with the acres and the assessed value in Vermont PIE. And then on the Excel sheet, I am also putting the same information.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, if I could just reiterate that the reason for that is because some of the utilities don't have generation. And so the thought process behind that separate Excel really was that there was properties associated with utility property that didn't show up in Vermont PIE, right? So there is some overlap, and I get that. And maybe Terry and Christy, we can look at that another year to see if there's a way to say if you've done it on Vermont PIE, you don't have to do it a second time. But I think for this year, if you would humor us so that we could make sure that the property tax records are correct, it'd be super helpful.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I don't mind doing that. I would love to have the conversation about maybe in future years not needing to duplicate efforts because we don't have generation, we don't have anything else. So it sounds like everything we can do in PIE. But for this year, yes, I don't mind helping you guys out. I appreciate you taking the time to explain it to me.
No, thank you. These are great questions. Thanks for doing that. Okay. Well, like I said, it's recorded. We'll save it and we will be reaching out to let you know when the site is live and ask you guys get that form back to us that we can then provide an account to you. Right, Dave? So that would be the process. They would submit that authorization form and then they would get like login instructions.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. And if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask me and I can find the right expert on this call to answer them for you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Dave, very much. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, DAs.